All right, so this is the last part of this section where I show you how to do some scripting. Now, the thing about audio scripting is it takes a little bit of juggling. First of all, you cannot call up audio unless there's an audio component. And this is something I can't stress enough because it's very, very common when trying to make an audio script and stuff that you forget to put an audio component. So every single object that you're going to call up an audio play event or an audio play script command, it's going to have this audio component on it. So you always make sure if you have an object that's going to be playing audio, you don't forget to put the audio source on it. It's a pretty common mistake. All right, so I have my cube here, right? Now, it's got a rigid body and it's got a box collider. I don't need the rigid body, but I'm going to leave it on there anyway. The rigid body's there as we learned to control the movement of that object. All right, so I've got my audio source, just like I had on there before. Now, here's my script that I've attached to this object. So let's go ahead and look at the script, because there's a couple things happening here. I've got two variables exposed. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways to play sounds. All right, because one of the biggest frustrations that people have is how do I load multiple sounds onto a single object? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so we have three variables: audio source, audio. Okay, that's going to load up the actual audio source, the component that's going to control all of the audio elements of our object. Now we have this audio clip sounds, right? So if you notice, it's a collection. I've made an array of sounds. This is how we can load several different sounds onto a single object. We create an array variable, and then we can load as many sounds as we want into it. All right, and then I have a public int sound to play, and I'll show you why I have that sound to play integer exposed in a second. Okay, the first thing that happens in this script, audio equals get component audio source. That basically says whatever component, audio source component, is attached to the object that this script is also attached to, it's going to grab that component and it's going to load it into that variable audio. And now I can make a bunch of calls from that audio source to play a sound, or whatever I want to do. However I want to affect the audio component, I can do to this variable now. All right, we're skipping update because we're not doing anything continuously. The next thing, okay, on collision enter. So remember we have this old function, our old buddy on collision enter, right? This object has a collider. So that means that when something enters into its collision space, we're going to get a callback, right? We're going to get a value produced. And here's our argument collision thing. And now we're going to say if thing.gameObject.tag equals player. So we're testing to see if this object penetrating the collider is the player. And we've done this several times, so you should be pretty familiar with this by now. We're going to do something. Audio.play. And here's where audio gets a little bit confusing because people get confused of what parts of play work and what don't, and why we have multiple different types of play. So I'm going to show you this. Right? First of all, what I've told this to do, audio.play. That means, and it's a method, so we have those parentheses there. That means play whatever audio is attached to the source, right? So we have an audio clip that's by default attached to a source. Now, the thing about the audio clip being attached to that source is that if we call up audio.play, it's always going to play this. And we cannot have more than one audio source component per object, right? So how do we play a different sound? Well, what we do is we create these other clips here, right? And we load them into sounds. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But if I just say audio.play, it's automatically going to play whatever clip it is loaded up right here. So let's go ahead and see how that works. Now, there's one thing I forgot to do, and you'll figure this out pretty fast. This is not an error that is going to be difficult to detect. I've left that sound being play on awake and loop, so it's going to constantly play. It's really annoying when that happens, but you'll definitely know when it happens. All right, so I'm going to hit play. Now, if I did this correctly, what should happen is if my player object hits my cube, there we go. It makes a noise. So only upon the collision of my player and the cube does that audio trigger. Okay, fine. But what if I want to play a different sound? And what if I want this to play on one thing and another sound to play on another hit? Well, we have a solution for that. And it is not a solution that's very easy to find. It's very difficult to figure out how to do this, so I want to give you this lesson because it's going to become incredibly invaluable in your future endeavors when you want to play multiple audio based on a single source. So what I've done here is that, okay, audio play. All right, that just plays whatever's attached to the source, and we can't dynamically swap that out. We could, but it would be a real pain. Instead, what we're going to do is I'm going to comment that out. Okay, now I'm going to use this thing called audio play one shot. All right, so what does this say here? All right, audio play one shot says, okay, play one sound, right? It's basically a way to load up a sound from anywhere, and it's saying play one shot, and the parentheses here are asking, and you can see when we put the parentheses, it's asking what audio clip do you want to play? Okay, well, what did I create up here? I created a list of audio clips. All right, and that list, or actually it's an array. I created an array of audio clips. I could do it in a list as well. And that has a bunch of clips in it. Now I can load those dynamically inside of my editor here. So I've just dragged and dropped some of these sounds. Right, and when I told it to say play one shot, it said play one of these. And so I've told it the sound to play. That's an integer telling me what number sound should I play. So if I say play sound to 0, it'll play this sound. Play sound 1, it'll play this sound. Play sound 2, it'll play the bell. So let's just choose 2. And I can load as many audio clips into this as I want, and I can choose what sounds it plays when it does something different. So I can say if something else hits this, I get a different sound. And I could do that here. When I say play one shot sounds, and then I tell it the index is what I'm giving it in the editor, but I could make it a custom index. So I could say if thing.gameObject.tag equals cannonball, then I could play sounds, and then I could choose the actual iterator. I could choose the specific sound slot to play. So I can do a lot with this. It's very flexible to create a list of sounds based on an array. So now let's just see what happens. So I've told it I want this weapon upgrade sound to play. And actually, I take that back. Let's change that to 1. Because it's going to use the slot number here, which we call an index number. Feel like it's changed. Let's make sure we've compiled this. So often I tend to forget to compile a script when I make minor changes. And I'm going to make his move speed a little faster so we can move through this quicker. There we go. And you see what happened was, as soon as I contacted that, it hit the bell. Now let's grab our script here and we can make a quick change there. So element 2, sound to play as 2. Let's just change it to 1. And
weapon upgrade.
There we go. See?
Weapon upgrade. Weapon upgrade.
So what I've done here is to create a simple and effective script that allows you to play any sounds you want based on any action you want attached to this object. So you create this array of sounds and you can load up as many as you want and have as many multiple sounds as you want play when certain events happen based on a script. Now, it's one of the things that it's kind of hidden in Unity, and I had a lot of hard time. I had a lot of difficulty and a hard time trying to find this stuff when I first started using Unity because it really wasn't spelled out very well. So I'm giving you the benefit of my experience and kind of showing you a really quick way to create a library of sounds for a single object to emit when different things happen to it. All right, so that's a rundown of audio. When you come back, you're going to be working on the lab, doing this exact same thing, just in a little bit of a simpler format. And so I hope you enjoy your time working with audio.